Good afternoon and welcome back to the market recap. My name's John Oldman. Thanks for trusting me with your time. It is still Monday, December the 14th. We've got 10 days till the big day. And hopefully your trading went well today. A lot of gap fills, a lot of interesting things in the markets. Just to kind of glaze over what happened in the markets this morning. The crude oil. Well, first off, we didn't really have any known economic information due out. There was nothing to help us as far as that was concerned. So really, just kind of short time frame markets. We still have our equities in rollover. We've got crude over coming into rollover. We've got our currencies in rollover. Lots of things in kind of in flux as far as rollover is concerned. Don't forget we have quadruple witching on Friday. But as far as crude is concerned, overnight longs lost their nerve and got a little bit too aggressive to the downside. We talk about sometimes these markets kind of turn into like rubber bands. Well, the sellers in the crude oil certainly stretched that rubber band to the downside and got a nice pullback as the day went on. The E-mini S&Ps was holding the top side of that bull flag that we were looking at this morning, but ended up kind of closing it back down below it. We're going to see that in the charts and take a look at what that means. The NASDAQ, we had a pretty strong day in the NASDAQ. Again, kind of falling apart late in the session for some possible news, perhaps creating that downside move. It really held its strength early. There was no gap fill. I still don't think there was a gap fill, but we're going to check that out shortly. And a lot of things changing here as we come into the close. The gold continues to surge lower in search of buyers. Overnight shorts really kind of brought the best opportunity. Another one of those gap fills, opening range, low of the session type days. The euro remains range bound, probably awaiting Brexit information, and the Japanese yen rejection of weekly kickoff high and above brings a nice little short time frame adjustment. It is again, December. It's near the end of the year. A lot of our major players probably sitting things out on the sidelines. Hopefully, they've made their money already, and we're going to have to see how the rest of this year plays out for us. As always, I'd like to say good morning, or in this case, good afternoon to everybody. MSS Capital talking about not a surprise what happened today. A lot of gaps got filled in the ES and other markets. And came back into Friday's value area. Open on gold got rejected from Friday's value area, opening lower in gold, closing the gap, and then rejecting that. Tanya's talking about, she's not surprised Friday, she said to herself, no short ES trades next week. It's obviously going up forever again. And whenever I say that, I know that there's something in that's telling me that's not right. And then you thought to yourself, anytime I think that, it tends to turn down. I love these markets. Well, if you saw last week in the forecast, and I don't know if we talked about it at all in the, I think Dan did talk about it in the recap. My dad used to say, it always looks the best at the top and it always looks the worst at the bottom. I mentioned in the forecast last week, well, it certainly looks good up here. All I could think of was, like, all I could hear was my dear old dad saying, well, it always looks the best at the top. So, Tanya, I'm with you. James, good afternoon. Great indicator of sentiment. That's right. When everybody's on the same side, the top is in. Good afternoon, Mike Magallanes. Good to see you. Let's take a look at these charts. Now, I'm still wrestling with the gremlin that causes these charts to kind of fade away on me, and I'm not real happy about it, but it doesn't take too long to get them up. I'm going to bring them up right now, and we'll take a quick look-see as they do come up, and here they are. So we'll see if we can't get through this. I'll talk fast. Here's the crude oil. Continuing upside structure. The The overnight was long. It took us back to settlement, took us way past settlement, really to a nice test of the support at 45.50, which is our weekly kickoff low. Here is the 30-minute. Here we go. Here's our open, leaving the opening range at the high. We have all of these overnight longs. Settlement again was, where was it? It was 46.57. There it is. All these overnight longs took the market right back to settlement, got a little bit too aggressive to the downside, overstretched the rubber band, and then coming right back into range and value by the end of the session. S&Ps now was not really looking much towards a gap close. I thought maybe we'd make an attempt to close the gap. We did actually close the gap. Here's that top of that kind of bull flag, and we were unable to hold that top there. We got a pretty good move to the downside into the close here. Let's take a look at it. Here's our gap open. Settlement here. No, not a lot of overnight longs in this market, but boy, they sure got a little aggressive up here, taking the market right back to closing the gap, and then eventually by the end of the session, actually closing out the value area special situation play. What is that, you say? The market opens outside of range and value. If the market comes back into the previous day's value and reaccepts through time, momentum, participation, or friendship, there's a probability that the market could trade all the way to the other extreme of the value area special, the value area from the previous day at some point during that session. Wow, pretty decent move there. If you were able to catch that move to the downside, pretty substantial move. Not as substantial as shorting at the high here, but again, the opening range I think was the low of the regular trading hour session. As that fell, we worked to close this gap, closing the gap, and finally accepting inside value and finishing that play to the downside. NASDAQ. It's almost like I said Aflac. NASDAQ. Centrally located between weekly kickoff high and weekly kickoff low. Near the end of rollover, we can pretty much expect short time frame control in these markets. The bigger time frame traders are really looking to get a cheap rollover achieved so that they can continue to hedge their huge positions. NASDAQ really presented much better than the other equities today. Here we go. Settlement here. Gap open, unable to close the gap even in the overnight session. Opening range, the low of the regular trading hour session, pushing this market higher. Really unable to kind of pull back and even come close to even taking out that low of the opening range or the session or to close the gap. This gap close smacks well for possible continuation to the upside. So, Tanya, we may see our up move at some point this week if we're paying attention. The gold, still looking at downside structure in the longer time frame, had a nice move to the upside off of our island low here. Not suggesting that might possibly be over, but again, a nice down move, a move back to close the gap, a move back towards settlement. Take a look at what it did on the 30-minute chart here. So here's our settlement was all the way up here, 1843.60. Lots of accumulating shorts in the overnight session. The market really leaving a large opening range right off this low here, taking basically price and our charts away. Take a second here to put this back up. Why does this happen from time to time? It happens, and then it doesn't. Oops. And here we go. Disconnected. Initializing. And we're back. So all of our overnight shorts taking price almost right back to settlement, closing the gap, basically going range bound the rest of the day. Our currencies, not all that interesting. The euro, we're kind of expecting to wait for some information about Brexit. I don't think it's been too aggressive either way with any news that has been coming out of it. We basically traded relatively close to that 22.10 weekly kickoff high within 4 full ticks of it, 8 half ticks. Here we go. We got settlement here, lots of longs, continuing buying, but eventually capitulating, getting out, taking price back towards settlement, basically back into Friday's range before falling back into range-bound activity. Whenever I talk about range-bound activity, I'm talking about shorter time frame traders, short time frame. The Japanese yen took a look above weekly kickoff high, unable to maintain price above that 30-minute chart. Here we go. Oh, I thought I had my volume profiles already on here. I'm going to go 730. So we got a pretty good push to the upside after the open, off this weekly kickoff high, but it's just as soon as that weekly kickoff high fell to the downside, we really became aggressive and emotional to the downside. You can see, look at the lack of volume that occurred once we got back below this important inflection level. Just no volume, just a big push back to the downside. We'll look for other opportunities throughout the week to see if we have any opportunities to take another execution up near this weekly kickoff high. Again, just a kind of a look-see over what happened today. The market forecast will really get a little bit deeper in things in the mornings. I know we all miss Dan on Mondays. He's working 4 days a week. This is going to probably be the end of the year for the forecast and the recap. Dan and I are going to be taking a little bit of time off the last 2 weeks of the year. I figure it's a good time, with Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve on Thursday and Christmas and New Year's on Fridays. We're going to have that 2 weeks off, and we're really going to only miss about 6 decent full trading days in that whole amount of time. So this is also going to be the last group coaching for the year. It's also going to be the last market therapy session for the year, and I'm going to put this market therapy link in, and then I'll put the group therapy link in. That's the market therapy link. Here's group therapy. A really good session last Wednesday, and both of them, and I'm looking forward to another good session this week. Come and join me. Market therapy, again, is at 3:15 Central Time on Wednesday. Dr. Andrew Menaker will be there. We're going to be talking about perfection and how striving for perfection can affect your trading. And then the group coaching at 1 o'clock p.m. Central on Wednesday. Now, think about the timing of that. I may have to think about changing the time for the group coaching, because 1 o'clock Friday is when the FOMC meeting is going to come out. I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes or so to watch what happens as the FOMC meeting comes out in the markets that they're trading. And we're still going to do the group coaching anyway. So we'll see about 5 minutes after 1 for the group coaching on Wednesday. Anybody see any interesting news come out today? I know that the bipartisan group is thinking of working to release a COVID release bill. Congress facing lots of pressure to send help. Unfortunately, extra unemployment benefits may be delayed for weeks. It seems like they're just trying to get something out to help people here in the U.S. The Electoral College is set to vote Joe Biden in as the president. There's another plan to ship 6 million Moderna COVID vaccine doses once the FDA gives the okay. New York, a nurse in New York got the first dose of COVID vaccine today, so it looks like we're on our way. But, the news isn't all that great. I think it's over 300,000 fatalities from the COVID disease already. But I think we're hopefully seeing the the light at the end of the tunnel with that. Again, we hope that. As far as this day in history, 1911, December 14th, Amundsen's expedition wins the race to the South Pole and then returned back safely to base camp in January 1911. First people on the South Pole. Amazing. Seems like it's got to be pretty cold down there. 1900, on this date, is the birth of quantum theory. A German physicist, Max Planck, publishes his groundbreaking study of the effect of radiation. And this is the creator of quantum theory and of modern physics in 1799. George Washington dies. 1909, the Indy Brickyard is completed. The racetrack for the Indy 500 was originally bricks. Now there's only 1 yard of bricks left on the whole thing. It's now under asphalt. And 1977, Saturday Night Fever premieres in L.A. That could almost be this date in music, which I always like to do. 1932, Charlie Rich is born. We got a couple of really good old songs. Most of you probably won't remember them. I remember The Most Beautiful Girl as a song from, growing up when I was younger with my dad playing the AM radio, working out in the yard. Not a lot of other stuff that I know of as far as, 1971, I know about Led Zeppelin. The Zeppelin 4 was number 1 on the classic rock charts. And then in 2006, it was rated number 1 on Classic Rock Magazine's 100 Greatest British Albums poll. 1979, The Clash released their third studio album on this date. 1973, Bruce Springsteen appeared at Pinecrest Country Club in Shelton, Connecticut. Only 200 tickets were sold for the show. That was pretty early in Bruce Springsteen's career, I think. So, anyway, always interesting stuff. I think we're going to call this a recap. I know we're all looking forward to seeing Dan back here tomorrow for the recap. I will be back with you again for the market forecast. 8 a.m. tomorrow. We do have some information, some known things due out tomorrow. Taking a look, we've got the FOMC meeting does begin. Empire State Manufacturing Index import-export prices at 7:30 Central Time, and industrial production at 8:15. We'll be looking at that perhaps during the market forecast tomorrow. Wednesday, again, retail sales, PMI composite flash, petroleum status, and FOMC announcement, and the chair presser at 1:30. So lots of coming out here in the next couple of days. Hopefully some good information and some good opportunities for us. On that note, I'm going to call it a day. If you're trading tonight, make sure you keep a little powder dry for tomorrow and get some good rest. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Get out there. Profit. Trade well. We'll see you in the morning. Have a good one.